Namaste, namaskar, distinguished invitees, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. On behalf of ET Brand Equity and Clever Tap, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the Big Leap Rise with Retention Roadshow, Bangalore chapter. Bengaluru, this is the Bangalore chapter. Let's begin this fantastic, lovely, and a special evening with a huge round of applause. Come on, everyone, generous round of applause. Thank you. Jeff Bezos had once said, "We see our customers as invited guests to a party and we are the hosts." It's our job every day to make every important aspect of customer experience a little better. With that, The Big Leap in a nutshell is hosting exclusive interviews, multiple city roadshows, retention masterclasses, chat shows, networking events, and informal meetups with India's digital pioneers. Before I proceed, let's watch the recap of the roadshow. Everyone, your eyes on the big screen once again. Can we have the recap video for all of us who's present here?
Brand Equity and Clever Tap joined forces to bring in the most comprehensive and biggest ever program in the customer retention domain.
Right? We can all talk about attraction measures, but the real game is in retention.
Engagement is a sort of leading indicator of long-term retention. So if you are able to get a lot of people engaged, much more likely to stick on to the app.
There is nothing which retains a customer more or builds trust if you don't consistently give him what he wants.
Right? It is about understanding how a group will behave and then predicting that this user belongs to a particular group and then making that correct decision of serving the correct content there.
Thank you for watching the video. With that, today at the Rise with Retention Roadshow Bangalore chapter, as co-organized by ET Brand Equity and Clever Tap, ladies and gentlemen, we will deep dive into customers' journey and how brand can create customized solution to retain them. We're also very glad to host our esteemed speakers who will share their big leap story and shed light on the future of MarTech. Bringing the tech back to MarTech, which is also the theme for today. And I have one big announcement to make, that is our social media hashtag is hashtag the big leap and hashtag retain to gain. And also catch the live updates on at ET Brand Equity and at Clever Tap. With that, we're all set to begin this great evening. Are we ready? All right, this is two-way communication. Are we ready? Bangalore, we need a little more energy. Are we ready, Bengaluru? Lovely. To set the tone for this evening, to uncover what's shaping the MarTech landscape, I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Vakul Agarwal, Vice President Growth Licious, for a featured session on the future of MarTech, bringing the tech back to MarTech. Ladies and gentlemen, Vakul is currently responsible for platform business at Licious and is heading growth. He was previously with Grofers Blinkit for 7 years and was leading growth and consumer product for the business. I would request all of you present here, put your hands together. Let's welcome Mr. Vakul Agarwal on stage. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir. Everyone, put your hands together. Let's invite Mr. Vakul on stage. Over to you. The stage is yours.
No, I'm okay. Thank you, guys. I'm not very sure if I'll be able to match the energy. Yeah, but bear with me. So, guys, I'll stay away from the MarTech piece. I'll generally try to cover what growth is all about. at least in the context of e-commerce or D2C companies. And that is what I wish to cover. So the first thing that I would like to speak is of what is D2C actually, right? Can you give me a few examples of a D2C company? There are plenty in Bangalore. Just a couple of examples, anyone? Apart from Licious, obviously. Any D2C company that you can think of? Wow, okay. Bodywise, Sugar, Dr. Vedya, Boat, okay. Nice. I am a customer. Now, the second question is, what do you assume is the revenue of these brands through their own platform? Right. Someone said Boat, for example. Now, what would be the revenue that Boat does through their own website or their app? That's the hallmark of a true D2C, wherein you own the customer and you have their data. Because if you are selling on marketplaces, then actually they own the customer and you know very little about the customer, right? And hence it will be very hard for you to communicate about your sale events, about any promotion that you have. So that's a true D2C. Fortunately for us at Licious, we own 90% of our revenue through our app and through our website. It is also because it's a very frequent use case, just like grocery, and that plays to our advantage. But that's our true D2C, right? Now, D2C is broken into three pieces, and it's a little different than the marketplace that I've worked with, which is Grofers or Blinkit. The special thing about D2C is it is a combination of product, platform, and service. When I say product, they own the product. For example, at Licious, we own our product, and hence we have a huge say on the quality of the product, right? We can't blame anyone for the quality. Unlike a Blinkit, if you order a Maggie, they have very little say on the quality of the product. That is a special power that a D2C brand holds. The second is obviously platform, which is your app or website. So you need to compete with the likes of Swiggy's of the world and Zomato's of the world in terms of the experience that you end up delivering to the consumer. And the third part is service, which is, for example, e-commerce, or there is quick commerce right now, right? Everyone is delivering in 10, 20, 30 minutes. And the expectation from a user would be same for a D2C brand as well, if you're delivering yourself. And that is how it becomes even difficult to operate in a D2C environment. You need to compete on the platform with the likes of Swiggy, again compete on the delivery time with the likes of Zeptos of the world or Blinkits of the world, and then you need to deliver a quality which is far superior than there is in the market, right? In our case, what has helped us is the quality difference. Now, we at Licious, our own differentiation is in the way we have sourced our products, and we are the only player who have a processing center where we cut, clean, and package meat. So that is our differentiation. And that is why most of the customers who buy from us love the quality, right? The next topic that I would want to cover is growth. Again, like I said, I'll keep it away from the MarTech piece, the retentions that you hear, the performance marketing that you guys normally hear. So whenever at least I think of growth, I try to think of input parameters which will dictate growth. I'll give you a very simple example of input parameters, at least in the e-commerce space or again in D2C context. The price that you charge for a product is one input parameter. The quality that you deliver is another input parameter. The product experience that you deliver to a customer is again an input parameter, followed by the delivery experience, the post-customer experience. These are all different input levers that our organization controls. And the mix of these input parameters is what will define your product market fit. An example of my previous organization at Grofers in 2017, we changed gears and we said that we'll offer the lowest price on the groceries that you buy from us. We were playing only an input, which was price, that we'll give the lowest price. We saw some decent growth, and then 2019 happened. Reliance entered, Flipkart entered, Amazon entered with the same proposition. And we will give the lowest prices. And hence the differentiation disappeared. And then is when we thought that what should we do different? We saw a downward curve. And then in 2020, we thought that, okay, quick commerce is something that has worked well in Europe. Probably try to replicate it. We replicated it. Zepto was the first one to replicate, but we followed them. And we saw decent growth after that. So we followed these, or we changed the second input, which is time of delivery. And that is how we unlock growth. At Licious, what we are trying to do right now is we play on quality. There is a saying, and the founders are very passionate along with all of us. There's a saying that if we can't serve our kids or families, then we'll not serve our users. And that is so boldly written, and I can't tell you, and you need to enter the office to feel that ethos, right? Once we were to launch a city, and that city was Delhi, and the temperature compliance went bad, and there was a full newspaper ad in Delhi saying Licious is launching in Delhi, Times of India front page. And the call was taken that we'll not deliver the entire day because the temperature compliant got missing. So that is how the ethos is followed. So quality is one first parameter that we focus on. The second parameter that we focus on is temperature controlled deliveries. So Licious is the only player in the entire country which has its bag designed for cold deliveries. Zomatos of the world and Swiggy's of the world have their bags designed for hot deliveries. We are the only player in India which is designed to ship a cold, just to maintain the quality of the product that we ship. So these are the input parameters that we work on. And then the last topic that I would want to cover is personalization. Again, we'll keep away from the MarTech piece, right? The way the entire quick commerce or any delivery vertical would work is there is a warehouse, central warehouse, which is far off in the city. There are multiple hubs within the city, which is close to Indranagar. And from that hub, you'll get your goods, that whatever you order. So now assume that you are sitting here and you want to order from Licious. And you open the app, you order whatever you want to. The products will come from the nearest hub. Now, what we are doing for personalization is understanding what kind of people stay near that hub, what kind of people are we serving, what do they prefer in terms of their eating habits, and ensuring the products that we keep in the hub are personalized to that set of audiences. Just to give you a very random example, assume that in Indranagar, there are more Bengalis living, right? Then my curation on the app in Indranagar will be very tuned to a Bengali cuisine curation. So that is the first lever of personalization that we are working. The second thing is, because there are more affluent people living in Indranagar, then my delivery times would be less here because people would want to pay for a convenience. And hence, I'll have a 60-minute delivery time in Indranagar. Vis-a-vis in Old Gurgaon, I'll have a 90 or a 120-minute delivery time. That is how I'll design my system, right? And just because it's a MarTech event, I'll also try to cover the personalization piece that you saw or you see on the app. So the MarTech, the base of MarTech is where do you store your entire data, all your events data that you compile if you're an app or a website heavy business. So there are systems called CDP, a customer data platform, wherein you collect all your data. The one thing that anyone needs to ensure is your CDP is linked to whatever you are powering your user on the front end. By front end, I mean the app or the push notification that you give using CleverTap. Are all these tools integrated or not? That's the base of personalization. If that base is not existent, then you can't do much on personalization piece, right? And that goes without saying that because you collect all the data, you can create multiple cohorts, you know, which user buys fish, which user prefers chicken, at what time do they prefer weekends or weekdays. That is very intuitive stuff, right? So yeah, that is what I wanted to cover, guys. Any questions any one of you might have, feel free. I can take a couple of questions if I have time.
So you said you guys own the users because, you know, and thus you are able to scale a lot better and you own like 90% of your users.
Yeah.
Is it because the market at that time didn't have cold carry bags, was not suitable for what you were offering? Because let's say if Blinkit existed at that point of time, would you be able to say the statement or have you designed your products, have you designed your business because of the market forces at that point of time?
No, so see, quick commerce at least is here for at least is 9 months old, I would say, right? And in the last 9 months, we have seen, we call them channel partners because we work with them. We have seen their share decrease in terms of percentage contribution to our revenue. So that is That is the actual power of what we are delivering. See, the other thing is, even if we order from, say, Swiggy or a Blinkit, a Licious product, the chances of that product going bad is very high. Because they keep the stuff in the same refrigerator where they'll keep the Amul milk or chocolates or what all things. And hence, the temperature compliance will go for a toss. Even the bags will not be designed. So usually people do try 1 or 2 times just because of faster deliveries, but people do migrate back to the app. That is what we have seen.
Because the supply chain is not supportive of.
Yes, and they'll never try to build that supply chain unless and until they really believe that it's a very big category wherein they'll need to win and invest heavily.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Any other questions, guys? Cool, thank you. Okay.
Once again, put your hands together. Let's say thank you to Mr. Agarwal for setting the flow and for an insightful session. Now I will request Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Chief Customer Officer, Clever Tap, to come on stage and present a memento to Mr. Vakul and say thank you. Thank you so much for taking time off from the busy schedule and joining us and making the session even more interesting. Please. That's Mr. Vakul Agarwal for us this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to both of you. Please take your seats. Thank you. Hope you're all following hashtag The Big Leap. Now you can post the selfies which we clicked in the beginning of the event. You can post the pictures, videos, and catch the live update at ET Brand Equity and at Clever Tap. With that, before moving ahead for the most awaited session for this evening, let's take some time out to identify the real retention master. Thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, for every interaction to be timely and relevant to the user's context, behavioral data plays a critical role. The more data you have on your users and their behaviors, the more relevant your user engagement campaigns become. Thus, making unlimited user data affordable, available, and accessible in real time is becoming the key for marketers to plan out the type of campaigns that turn new user into loyal superfans. More importantly, it brings your campaigns away from generic spam territory into an area where your brand can build a meaningful digital relationship that's a win-win for both of you, that is for the company and your customer. With that, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together while I welcome our esteemed panelists on stage. Everyone, put your hands together for Mr. Sangeet Aloysius, Head of Product for Retention and Engagement, Flipkart. Sangeet brings in over 11 years of product management experience across marquee e-commerce startups for Flipkart and Snapdeal, Microsoft, and his own entrepreneurial venture. Once again, everyone, for Mr. Sangeet. A very, very warm welcome to you. We have with us Mr. Sudeep Bansal, Vice President Growth of Science, and he is responsible for driving growth across performance marketing, retention, and product for their D2C platforms. In his career spanning over 15 years, he has worked with companies such as Swiggy, OLX, and Coca-Cola India, amongst others. Everyone for Mr. Sudeep. Ms. Smita Murarka, Chief Marketing Officer, Duroflex. Smita has over 19 years of experience. She has built brands that make categories unboring, break stereotypes, and unlock disruptive growth, all this while bringing in consumer centricity and creating sustainable impact. That is Ms. Smita for us. Everyone, put your hands together. Very, very warm welcome to you. Mr. Kirti Varun Avasarala, Chief Product Officer, Meesho. Kirti leads product management, design, and user research function for the company. He has over 15 years of experience in strategy consulting, operations, and product leadership role. That's Mr. Kirti Varun for us. Everyone. We have with us Mr. Charandeep Singh Chawla, Head Marketing and CRM, TVS Credit Services Limited. Is a marketer by profession and has handled various positions in sales, marketing strategy, brand management, and digital marketing in his 18 years of rich career. Currently at TVS Credit, he is responsible for overall business marketing strategy. That is Mr. Charandeep Singh for us, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite our next panelist, Mr. Ankur Sharma, co-founder and chief product officer, InstaMojo. Ankur's expertise lies in leading data science initiatives and product-led growth strategies. In his early career days, prior to starting at InstaMojo, he was with Kiwi Inc. and Capital One. That's Mr. Ankur Sharma for us. Everyone, give it up. Mr. Sushant Junarkar, COO and Head E-Commerce Health and Glow. Sushant has over 20 years of experience setting up and leading business growth across industry, including e-commerce, financial services, and FMCG, among others. That's Mr. Sushant for us, everyone. Joining them on stage, we have Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Chief Customer Officer, Clever Tap. Mr. Abhishek is seasoned business leader and has led a number of SaaS and internet businesses with an immense focus on customer success and thereby building high growth business. Everyone, for all the panelists on the stage. To moderate this interesting session, I would like to invite Mr. Gautam Srinivasan, senior journalist. Everyone for Mr. Gautam Srinivasan. Gautam expertise in editorial and branded content spans an 18 years journey with leading media conglomerates in Asia. He also anchors a variety of TV, digital show and events on enterprise technology, personal finance, education, health and economy for corporate and business media networks. Now I'll leave the floor. I'll hand over my mic to Mr. Gautam. So over to you.
Thank you so much. Well, early part of my career, I used to bring the bad news. Now I bring the good news. So, well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see all of you here. I'll try and cover this side, although it's covered a bit by the podium. I noticed that we have a fantastic lineup of speakers, and they cover your daily life, from going to sleep after a hard day's work to waking up, taking care of yourself, taking the car or two-wheeler to work, working, then coming back and maybe browsing a few products while you're at it. And Sangeet, it's great to have you here. I realize with a big billion-day sale hanging in the balance, it's fantastic that we have you here with us. And I'm looking... Take our time to do shopping tonight. I hope many of you are premium customers. You get the early bird advantage there, so to say. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm looking forward to hearing, the stories from the trenches, as I call it, because all of these speakers who are with us, they've been through the grind. They've been through the challenges. So hopefully we'll bring out a few lessons in excellence from all of them as we discuss the future of MarTech, bringing the tech back to MarTech. So we're not going to make it very jargon focused. I know marketers love jargon. So in fact, I was brushing up a few terms while we were speaking inside, and I think I've at least forgotten 50% of what I learned there. But we'll keep the conversation breezy and light, and still bring out those nuggets of information which could be relevant to your business, which could be relevant to your use cases and applications. So let's start with a sort of a rapid fire round, and let's get to know our speakers. So off the left field, as they call it, the best brand tagline that you've ever heard. Sangeet, we'll start with you. All right, while we do that, Sangeet, we'll start with you, the best brand tagline that we have ever heard, and you're not going to say your own brand tagline. That's the condition here.
Yeah, I think the ones that I like the best, they are the ones, in addition to all the aspects for a good tagline, right? The ones that wherein people think, oh, this is where I want to be. I'll go with think different, Apple.
Okay.
A lot of people it really made people realize that they all wanted to think different, so that's my choice.
That's also the hottest selling product during your sale. So good vertical integration that is happening here.
And tonight you can get iPhones at phenomenal prices on Flipkart. So do take that opportunity.
Ooh, see, never letting go of the opportunity. Marketers will always be marketers, but that's the name of the game. It's in new. Smita, let's not put the audience to sleep. Just yet.
Not today, please, though I'm paid to do that for the rest of my days. But an Indian brand actually, boat, do what floats your boat. I just love that tagline. I honestly use it because it's such a, I mean, you can use it personally, right? So think different used to be still is probably, but I think boat has got a great tagline.
All right, so
yeah.
think different, do what floats your boat. Sudeep, your idea of the best brand tagline that you've ever heard.
I think for me, it'll be Nike. Just do it.
Let's go beyond just do it. That
Is it?
has happened.
No, but it still kind
Just
of...
did it, ho gaya hai.
It still kind of resonates so strongly with me. So I think, yeah.
Just the simplicity of
Yeah,
the
that's
message.
just like way above everything else.
All right. Audience, what do you think among the three? Think different, just do it, and do what floats your boat. Let's see which the audience finds, it appeals to them. Show of hands, think different. Okay. I'm glad we don't have the Apple marketing rep here. Do what floats your boat. All right. That's interesting. What was the third one? Just do it, right? Just do it. Oh. So looks like the classics still remain classics.
Still is big.
We'll see. But at least do what floats your boat. Improved in its aspect. So I think somewhere the India aspect is coming out. People are connecting more to their local brands. All right, let's now explore the journey of doing what you do. And this is a question with three choices. So Charandeep, we'll start with you on this. Implement MarTech stack from scratch, inherit and improve it, or rip and replace it. Three scenarios. Which do you have the most experience with, and which did you have the most fun doing?
I have the experience in terms of improvement only.
Okay.
And fun also with it, because I think rip and replace will never happen, at least in my career.
But do you look forward to that? If you had that challenge?
I think it depends, right? It's though it's a rapid fire one, but I think it depends what curve you are following in your organization, right? If it's something like you are pivoting your business strategy altogether, going into a different business model, targeting a very different consumer category, maybe what you have will not work for you. So I don't think the answer can be any of these without knowing that context. But whatever context I work in, I think it will always be about whatever you have, improve further, add to it, remove certain parts which are not working for you. That would be the strategy.
Improvement is always better in your opinion. All right, Sushant, let me come to you for that. Three scenarios. Let's not have guarded answers. This is a free-flowing forum. This is an ideal scenario, just to say. I'm not saying you do this in your company. Say if you had the
what
three
I've
options.
done is what I'll tell you. So I've had many opportunities to work in companies which were in the early stage of their digital adoption, and by that early stage of setting up the tech stacks as well, which included my own entrepreneurial venture as well. So I have been primarily into setting it up from scratch. That is what I have done. And I think what I enjoyed the most about it is, of course, within a plethora of options which are there, right? Which options to choose? Why do you choose them? What suits your business objectives? What suits your company? What suits your team? I think answering that, and it has been different in each of these cases. So I think setting it up from the scratch has been something that I have done, and I've enjoyed it the most.
So what's your secret to staying calm? Setting it up from scratch would be nerve-wracking for anyone.
I think the environment is... I think, of course, means people who are entrepreneurs, they'll understand. I think in a day you go through various emotions. It's actually a roller coaster ride. I think you learn it over a period of time, and I think it's been a wonderful journey. In fact, I blog about it, but that's not the whole idea.
So you're always the student. Becoming the master is a sort of an ever-evolving journey.
I think as an entrepreneur, yes. I think it's a never-ending journey. Every day there is a new learning. Whatever you learn, many times you unlearn. Yeah.
All right. Let's dial back to a sort of a non-serious question. Kirti, if you had the power to, say, speak to every human being on earth about your brand more importantly, for 15 seconds, let's call it the 15 seconds of worldwide fame, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think Meesho is building Har Indian ka apna market. I think that's sort of what it is. Hopefully all of those people can understand Hindi. But, but in essence, I think fulfilling aspirations for 1 billion people, right, in India. I think that's what the brand stands for, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
Okay. fulfilling aspirations for everyone in India. So in your sense, in your case rather, it would be talking to everyone in India, and that's enough. I think 1.5, 1.7 billion people is a wide enough demographic for you to cater. All right, fulfilling their aspirations. Ankur, let's hear your thoughts on this.
So this one we have done before, and it has worked with a lot of businesses, a lot of aspiring businesses, including my own wife. It's time for BYOB. Be your own boss.
Okay.
So start your own business immediately.
Well, it has a ring to it. It's time to be your own boss. The only question is how many people go up to their bosses and say that it's time for me to be my own boss, and I wonder what that response will be. But again, that's the power of marketers, right? They can.
I thought this was bring your own beer.
That also works. I guess after a few of them, be your own boss becomes a sort of a natural message that comes to you. All right. Abhishek, as an enabler for so many of the best companies in the world, retaining customers. This is a tricky one for you. What would you say to billions of people if you had the opportunity, 15 seconds of their undivided attention? What would you say?
So my platform does segmentation and engagement both, right? So at the very least, instead of saying one message, I need to say two, right? Do some segmentation. So I'll tell, let's say, consumers, people who consume the products produced by the brands, that we are trying to make you happier every day through the brands that we serve. Because all the personalized engagement that comes to you through the brands, some of which are present in this room, we're trying to make you happier. To the brands, I would say that we are here to help you build a strong business, a highly capital efficient business. Because when you serve your users well, you build a compelling business.
When you serve your users well, you build a compelling business. That's a safe answer. Let's see if that answer evolves as we go along in that discussion. But, well, that's pretty much it from the rapid fire run. So here is your primer to kind of just understanding the personalities who are here and how they think. So now is the time to get down to the brass tacks. So let's look at the customer journey, right? Totally evolved, and actually in the last 2-3 years, it has seen an exponential leap, a big leap. Everything from searching for the product to searching the platform to get your product to the kind of payments that you want to do for your product to after sales. Everything has changed. But at the same time, when we look at MarTech, right, from its early days, database marketing, then email, then mobile, and now we are talking about creating meaningful digital relationships. That's a nice simplified version of it. So I want to kind of pick on that thread and see what does that actually mean and how our leaders do it. So Sangeet, we'll start with you. The secret of creating the right kind of MarTech stack to engage and retain customers. Let's get your opening statement on that.
I think you're touching upon a very important point, right? So if you look at traditionally, marketing has been about what you tell to the customers and how do you tell it to them. But I think if you were to truly unlock the potential of growth, you got to really go beyond and build relationship with the customer, so that the objective of marketing has to become how do you grow each and every one of your customer? How do you give more value to him? And how do you build more value for the business from each and every one of the customers? I think it's all going to be about that relationship. I think that's a very important point in my head. So if you were to get to that, I think it's very important to actually go beyond what do you tell and how you tell, and go to the core value and experiences that you actually provide to the customer. And one thing that we clearly learned from us an insight is that these experiences, what matters to each of these customers actually vary. For example, the same experience that might not be exactly providing similar value to customer A and customer B, right? So it's not just about providing consistent experiences. Providing consistent experiences, companies do focus on. But if you need to really crack it well, you need to go beyond that and see how do you shape experiences so that you can maximize that value. I think building relationship by very deliberately and intelligently shaping those experiences, and it's not easy to get it right, but be at it and shaping that to build relationship is what I would say is an important goal that marketing should focus on.
All right, stick to the plan. Smitha, you came from the world of fashion to mattresses. And this, I'm really interested in hearing this story of how your MarTech stack is geared up to engage and retain customers. Because at the end of the day, folks would look at it as a single transaction, that's it. But there's more to the story, lots more happening. So I would love to hear the story of how you guys do it, the MarTech stack, how you built it, and how do you make sure there is consistency and personalization in every stage of the funnel?
So firstly, fashion, but then just before Duroflex, I was with a lingerie brand.
Okay.
It's quite drastically different. And for most of us sitting here, the category Duroflex, the key product being mattress, it's a non-LTV category, which means we are not encouraging repeat purchase as much. We now have categories that we hope that consumers add on to the basket, like pillows, protector, but LTV is not our fundamental goal as a business. So for me, that was a big unlearning. That, okay, you know, our product is bought once in 12 years. So definitely by a traditional thinking, CDP platform was not the first thing we needed to do in a MarTech platform. But our brief to the agency partners and our expectation of CDP was totally different. And probably that's the interesting stuff.
Any key highlights of your
doing,
expectations from the CDP? What was
so
it?
it's not retention. It is engagement. It is education. It is coming back, learning about the category, because that's very important for leading brands like us. The category is 60% unbranded even today. So if the category becomes branded, all of us win. And it is about spending time on our D2C platforms and engaging with us. That's the first KPI. So it's not about converting, which is very anti a lot of D2C brands here and most of them, right? So the exciting thing about CDP, combining my previous experiences, is earlier in digital stack, we would, you know, interact with email tools, we would interact with SMSs, and then came WhatsApp, and then came loyalty programs. It was just so cumbersome. You know, you needed time to spend on all these platforms, and at the end of it, there was no personalization happening, right? So CDP platforms and retention platforms really help combine all that, get all that journeys together, and finally the one consumer is getting served for what he or she wants. So that's the amazing thing about technology, that it's combined everything. So we can also, and this is something I would encourage to all the marketers, that while technology is the fundamental need, but it is not the reason why you're doing something for a consumer, right? Ultimately, the need of the category, why the consumer needs your product, that is most important. And the kind of content you consume is most important. So even a CDP tool will help you reach out to that one consumer amazingly, but if your content is not great, right, it falls apart. If your product is not great, it falls apart. So I think all those fundamentals have not changed, but the kind of technology progress we are in as marketers is just amazing. It just makes our connectivity so close to the consumer, and it actually gives us the power to change the category. And you know, from what Vakul said, even Licious as a category was so unbranded. Many more categories here, right? So it's been really quick the way categories have changed, and I'm hoping the same too for our category as well very soon. And yeah, I mean, so I just
it's
love.
fantastic how you guys have overcome it, because these niche categories, they become mainstream. Then everyone thinks, oh, we should have done that. But you have that first mover advantage of doing things differently. And I have to compliment you on Sounds of Sleep, that campaign. When I read more about it, I could understand why it could win awards, because it seems so straightforward, but the fact that nobody did it in the category that you're in, I think it's a testament to thinking different as it happens with a lot of the marketers. So we've heard the initial primer on the MarTech stack of Flipkart and Duroflex and how it's geared to engage and retain customers. Let me come to TVS Credit Services. 10-year brand, but part of a 100-year brand. So that you know, the way things work, it'll be very interesting to see how things balance out. So from your perspective in the business that you're in, and I believe you have, I think, a growth projection of 25%, or rather the growth that you're looking to capture, mid-market segment, lot of activity. During the lockdowns, we saw that the industry had a lot of issues, but a lot of the demand is coming back. But again, kind of similar issues with what Smita and her company faces, which is that you might not have as many avenues of engagement and retention as many others might have. So would love to hear the MarTech story, how it's geared up to engage and retain customers, and of course, personalize and make that journey more richer for customers in every step of the funnel. Charandeep.
Okay, so first, like, while it's true that people buy vehicles after a certain frequency, right? So if mattresses are 12 years, maybe a car after 4 years, a two-wheeler after 3 years or so. But the nature of the business is very different, right? All the people sitting on this panel take money first, right, and give the product. We actually give money first, right? So our engagement is happening every month, right? Because our guys are going out and collecting the EMIs, and or they are paying us through our digital channels. So there is always an opportunity to engage with them. So that ways, it's not as as similar a business, because you have an inherent opportunity to engage and talk to your customers. The downside of that is that largely you will talk to those who will not pay their EMIs timely, right?
That's what I meant. I mean, the content of the conversation is going to be very different.
Yeah. So, but then what has also changed in last 10 years in finance industry is that an auto loan company is no more an auto loan company, right? We are basically a financer to fulfill multiple needs in a customer's life cycle. So the products now are so varied, right? Like, for example, even on platforms like Swiggy or Zomato these days, there are people giving out finance. Like, the category is called buy now, pay later, and it's a very small ticket buying. And people are buying these products of, which we'll not even think of taking a loan on. People are taking short-term loans on such products. So there is a lot of things happening, and therefore even the traditional NBFCs are not just looking at that, I am an auto loan player, so let me just finance and play a role as an enabler to a retailer, like a TVS Motor in our case, or a tractor player. So people are thinking in a different way that ultimately my product is money. What are the ways consumer is getting money for? So interesting fact that while we were thinking of cross-sell, let's say 5 years back, we were thinking, okay, now 2 years have happened, let me reach out to him again and customer and ask him what else he needs and give something. But when you look at the bureau records, most of our customers within 3 months of taking a loan from us is opening another line, right?
Okay.
Either through a credit card or a gold loan or a personal loan. That means even if I am trying to hedge my risk, that, let me not overexpose to a single customer, the customer is still going out and getting loans from elsewhere for different needs. And that is what, as a brand, we have to understand, that he may not always need money for a vehicle or for a gold loan, or, he might need money for other needs. And how do you personalize or reach out to him to engage through that and understand that need better is where we need to focus, as our CRM, because I also lead CRM, so that is very important understanding to have. So those are the areas where we'll engage customers, where we'll build our data marts, where we'll try to understand customer more. And that's what drives our choices in terms of what kind of MarTech stack we need to have.
That's fantastic, and it's a more organic line, and I guess it's a sense of also evolution where the MarTech stack becomes so good that it starts providing more and more insights for business and revenue models to develop, because as you said, there's not just one application of the customer, one use case, there are multiple use cases which are getting built up, which could open up new revenue models for the business. Charani, thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. Sudeep, let me come to you. A different kind of an experience when we look at what Wow Skin Science does. And there, I guess you could be like, if it's a hit, it's a hit. But if it's a miss, it's a miss. So how's your MarTech stack geared up for a black and white world of engagement with the customer versus the grays which usually marketers encounter?
So I would say we are still very, very early in the journey. We are still kind of evolving to build a much deeper understanding of who the customer is, what the customer wants. And why I say so is because my previous stint was with Swiggy, where, we had all the consumer data in the world, right? Like, we had all the data and very deep data. So we could actually predict what or at least forecast, what is the restaurant that you like to transact on. But here, given it's a D2C play, and as Vakul was mentioning, only a percentage of sales come from D2C channels, so the data is thin. For us, it's about 30-35% sales that come from our own sites, and rest is aggregators and retail, where there's not much data, right? So in a way, we are blind to 2/3 of the customer behavior. But on our own side then, that data is where, a lot of focus is on how do we try to enrich it on 2-3 aspects essentially, right? One is, given the frequency of the category, you'll buy a shampoo or an oil 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a year and not more than that, right? So how do you engage the consumer with more interesting offerings. As an organization, WOW is super innovative in terms of launching new products very frequently, right? So that's a space that holds a lot of power because, this is a generation that's also trying out a lot of new products, right? Things are evolving very fast, right? So how do we then build the right recommendations for the people who are coming on the platform and trying out the brand, right? Now, it works on multiple fronts. One is the consumer who has made the purchase already and the data is available with you. So what's the next push notification that you'll send the consumer or the next WhatsApp message that you want to send to the consumer? The other is also on the product. Like, what's a cart upsell looks like? Or what's your also consumers also buy looks like, right? So a lot of logic, a lot of intelligence goes into that, which we are on a journey. Like, we're just starting there. I think we are at probably on a journey of 1 to 10, we would be probably at a 2.5 right now.
And is it going to get tougher? Because I'd spoken to Manish, I think 4 or 5 months earlier, where he said more about the phygital aspect as to how that's also a focus area. And it's interesting to see how a lot of the digital natives are talking about phygital right now. So the game gets tougher or more interesting for you?
It's an interesting challenge to solve for sure. It's definitely interesting, and we'll have to break some barriers and push the boundaries to say what we can really do to ensure that messages, while personalized, doesn't sound like a off. Like, we can't welcome a new customer, for example, to WOW family if the customer is already purchased us on Amazon or Flipkart and then coming to WOW, right? So how do you solve that is a question.
I'm sure we'll have lots more conversations since we have all the key players here. But let's expand that conversation now from an enablement perspective, best practices perspective. Abhishek, you've heard some of our panelists speak about their MarTech stack. So to start things off, and of course we'll get more use cases in, how can brands mold their MarTech into an engine for engagement, and how do they kind of position it to kind of identify their goals and identify the gaps as well while they're doing it?
I think there are, when we think about that, there are two things which are important. One is, in today's world, what are we really competing on? If I look around, 89%, like there is some research that 89% of the companies are competing on the basis of customer experience. So as much as we are selling a product or a service, the fact remains we are competing on the basis of customer experience. And the customer experiences are being shared by the market leaders operate in the space, like the Amazons, the Flipkarts, the Meeshos of the world, right? So that is one reality. The second is, like as Smita said, right, every brand has to have its own strategy, right? You can't really apply someone else's strategy. You may not even have a same strategy as another person, right? Someone cares about the single transaction, someone cares about the lifetime value. Someone has to think about maybe 2 transactions in a year because they're high value transaction. Vakul has to think about like a transaction every day, maybe twice in a day, for example, taking Lisha's example. So those two things are like the two truths that we have in the world today. We are competing on the basis of customer experience, and then we have our own strategy that we need. What we try and do is we try and bring the two things together for the brands as an enabler, allowing them a platform, a solution, which allows them to capture all of their customer data so that they can serve their customers in a meaningful manner, in a really enriched manner, but fundamentally aligned with their own strategy. Because we have come to realize, even in similar spaces, like I'll take example, right? Like streaming space, when we think about streaming, we tend to believe that all companies are the same. And we learned along with the customers that no two players have the same strategy. They are pursuing very different strategies. Someone is focusing on sports, someone is focusing on TV series, someone is focusing on having a lot of movies, someone is focusing upon a short segment of like really hit movies. And every strategy has to be enabled. Like brands should be able to execute upon this strategy without going through the painful process of assimilating all the data together, finding which channels to use, making all of those decisions, which become really, really challenging sometimes, right? Should you use WhatsApp? Should you use push notifications? Should you do 3 campaigns in a day? Should you do 5 campaigns in a day? Should you actually do any campaign at all, right? So we try and ensure that all of those things become easy for the marketeers so that they can focus on the core job, which is to delight their customers through their product and services and leave the rest to us.
You're leaving the bandwidth free for marketers to do what they do best. Convince us to buy more things. All right. On that note, let me come to you, Kirti. You spoke about fulfilling 1 billion aspirations. So I want to get your take on this, molding your MarTech stack into an engine of engagement. And of course, how you kind of map things out so that, you have your goals, but you also in the process can identify the gaps that still need to be addressed.
Yeah, and for us at Meesho, I think given the context is very different, I think we look at this also very differently. So maybe I'll just set a little bit of that context. So our platform and our business is basically a very mass market business. Right? How can you target 1 billion people in the country, whether it's customers or even sellers? So it's highly heterogeneous, the user base. Needs a very, very different span across the entire country. One of the things that Meesho has also been doing is to expand the e-commerce market. So more than 50% of new customers on Meesho are new to e-commerce as well, right? So which is very, very unique. The other thing which is very unique about Meesho compared to generally how we've looked at e-commerce is also that this is a very discovery-driven e-commerce platform, not a very intent-driven e-commerce platform. So what I mean by that is, in most e-commerce platforms, people have something in mind they want to buy, and they'll come search for it, try to find it, and buy it. On Meesho, we see customers coming with actually no real intent. They're just coming, browsing, they serendipitously find something, and they buy it. So in many ways, the context is very different. So the way we've looked at our overall engagement sort of strategy is broadly in 2 buckets. I think one is, how do you create a habit of shopping for these new to e-commerce customers, right? Because 50% of our new customers are those people. And this is where we look at this sort of concept, which is now become quite popular, called habit formation. Right? How do you define a habit formation point? After how many orders does a new to e-commerce customer become used to e-commerce and also builds the shopping habit?
Any
right?
data insights you can share on that? What have been the results of your tests?
Yeah, I think we've done lots of experiments, I think in the last 1.5, 2 years. And we figured out a habit formation point that works for us, which is X number of orders in Y number of months, for example, right? That's what we've figured out for our business. And what we've also realized is now if we have to get most of the customers to that point, then it's a mix of different kinds of things that work. One part is just a very simplified onboarding user experience. So first time when somebody comes, how do you make it as simple as possible? So a lot of the work that we do is just on that, simplifying the first time user experience for customers. So that's, I think, one leg. The other thing that we've focused on a lot is how do you shape users' demand towards the right kind of items to buy. Because what happens with a lot of new to e-commerce customers is there are a lot of barriers in terms of trust, in terms of quality, etc. So they feel that if I buy something, it won't be to my liking. If I buy something, I'm not sure if I can return it if I don't like it, right? So there are all of these kinds of barriers. So it's very important to ensure that the first few things that they buy, we hit the mark with that, right? And this applies to everything, not just the quality of the item, the delivery experience, the returns experience, and everything. So a lot of customization we've done is to solve for this habit formation point, right? And a lot of communication that we do to those customers, etc., is all revolving around this. So this is how we look at, this is one leg of our overall engagement strategy, right? Getting people to habit formation. The other leg is more for the existing customers. So people who build the shopping habit, how do you retain them, right? And there, I think, because we are a more discovery-driven platform, like I said, if you look at metrics like DAU by MAU, time spent on the app, I think we are the highest among any e-commerce platform. Right? Because a lot of people look at this as almost some version of entertainment and shopping, and it's not just a transactional affair. So you will see on our app a lot of things around user-generated content. So there's like a community on our app where customers share with each other the items that they bought so that they can inspire other people to buy the same thing. There's a lot of personalization as well going on in our communications. Almost every notification is personalized, right, to almost a cohort of one customer. Even the volume, by the way, is personalized. So you may get 20 notifications, somebody else will get 10, somebody else will get 5. Even the timing of sending a notification is also personalized, right? So these are some things that we've done for the existing customer base, right? So how do you make shopping more engaging, more fun? How do you make it more personalized? And for the new to e-commerce customers, how do you get them to that habit formation point, right? So that's sort of how we've
How
thought
things
about it.
have changed. One time, if you had to go shopping, you would get ready, get yourself prepared, step out, then look around, go to a mall, look around, and maybe get something to buy and come back. No data, nothing. But here we are, now we know our customers so much better thanks to the power of data. All right, that was a fantastic overview, Kirti. Thank you for that from Meesho's perspective. Ankur, let me see how things are a bit different at InstaMojo. Considering it's a product plus services game as well, I want to see if there are something different in terms of the MarTech strategy and how it's geared for engagement with a lot of its customer base. So over to you.
So it's true, InstaMojo is targeting aspiring businesses, and these are consumers in their own rights. They are typically solopreneurs, typically 2 or 3 people coming and trying to start a business. And I think a vast majority of our marketing efforts are towards organic marketing, where we're trying to create this awareness that there are certain things you need to build your own identity in the world of business. These folks are unlike the whole educated sort of parlance where, let's say, bigger D2C businesses who have the resources, who have the capability and the guidance to run a big business. But I'm talking about small businesses, which are typically lifestyle businesses. They are just doing businesses to keep their general life afloat. They are not looking to become a rocket ship. They are not looking for raise money. They are just trying to build a life. And as I said previously, they are trying to be their own boss. But a big part of our marketing communication is around creating awareness that what do you need to be successful? Why is it important to have your own identity to be successful? And how can you access the tools which are currently mostly available only to, as I said, resource-rich businesses? How can we make it available for everybody, regardless of like how technically savvy they are, how much are they familiar with, let's say, technology or coding, or like none of that should be a barrier. If you are focused on your core craft, then other things is where InstaMojo comes in and they said, okay, we will solve it for you. So a lot of our marketing engines have also been geared around creating the right kind of SEO, creating right kind of blogs. We have been spending years now on our blogs, and there's a lot of content around there just to bring this awareness, bring the right kind of education and guidance to somebody who is trying to just do a very simple thing, such as how to sell my art online, where it is a very basic question, but is also very nuanced. And I think that's where a lot of our marketing communications, even the kind of segmentation that we do in our customer base, where we try to see, okay, what kind of products or services are they trying to sell, and how can I make them more aware about the nuances of those products and services. So that is where we'll have certain category-oriented content going in, and then circulating this content via advertising, via notifications, via to our existing customers. I think that's been a key part of our journey in marketing, because unlike some of the more impulsive purchases where you can just like a shirt and you will just buy it because it's low ticket, or you will just like buy a beauty product immediately because again low ticket, but you will not start your business on a whim. You will not start your business on aspiration, on like an impulse. You will prepare your mind for it. It takes some time to take that decision. It's once in a lifetime kind of an event, really. And that is where it's important to build that connection, build that kind of a communication where you can tell the user that we're here to guide you in this journey.
And it also helps that you have a powerful central idea, right? Be your own boss. That central idea leads to a lot of interesting questions being asked, the answers to which opens up new opportunities of engagement and revenue for you as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Sushant, you have been, you have extensive experience in this space. And when we look at Health and Glow and your previous experiences, some best practices from there and what you're doing at Health and Glow, if you could share in terms of how brands can mold their MarTech into an engine for engagement, and how do they map goals to identify gaps?
As I think you mentioned, that beauty is a very impulsive category, right? Today, if you look at it, if we look at the number of channels that a customer is exposed to, right? Today, if we look at customer, they are exposed to WhatsApp, they are exposed to SMSs, they are exposed to websites, which could be ours or which could be competition. There is app. There are emails, OTT is there, right? So I think there is a plethora of options where the customers are there. And today, if you ask me about Health and Glow or the companies which, as I told you, are in the early stage of digital journey, it is extremely important to raise that awareness on the customer, right? Health and Glow has been there for almost about 25 years, very solid in terms of offline presence, but online, I think we are still raising awareness. It is the challenge in most of these early stage companies has been to catch these customers, right? And if you give so many channels which are there, right? And then you look at the way they interact with these channels. I could do it on my mobile phones, I could do it on tablets, I could do it on my laptops, I could do it on my TV screens, right? How do I catch that customer? I think Kirti mentioned about how many times, what time, right? So it actually raises a lot of these problems. I would say while the options are huge, it also raises a complexity of how do I reach out to that customer. So I would say that whenever I'm trying to put up a MarTech stack or something, I would definitely say at a level of raising awareness, this is what I would like. This is what I would like to optimize, or this is how I would like to mold that MarTech stack for, right? You also spoke about goals, right? Primarily two important things, and I think they will hold true for most of these things. One is, of course, what is the business objective or what is the company objective, right? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to increase engagement? Am I trying to upsell or cross-sell? Am I trying to retain customers? Or maybe I'm trying to improve the, let's say, the conversion from the search bar on the website. People are coming and searching. How do I improve the conversion there, right? So one aspect of goal setting would be, what is my objective? What is my business objective? The second would be the customer journey. How much detail can I map the customer journey, right? For each of these business objectives, there is a huge, like a customer journey, and of course, some of us are definitely covered through it. What is my customer journey? How do I map it out? What are the data points that I need to look at it? And these are the data points which need to actually get into the MarTech stack. And that is what it should throw back to me, where I can take business decisions to maybe make that process much more simplified.
That brings me to the follow-up question as to how do you ensure that happens, because there are many challenges which happen along the way, whether it's organizational alignment, whether it's ROI, new MarTech setup processes, integration, whole host of challenges that come about. So take us through the challenges aspect. How do you kind of deal with these challenges?
See, so I would say one of the key challenges, right, is let's say if I'm looking at a MarTech stack, before I look into that, one thing which, and it might sound a little global, but how much of a data analysis or a data culture do I have in the team or an organization, right? There is a lot of data floating around today. I think data is becoming more or less democratized. I mean, or it is
data-rich, information poor.
Yeah, data is huge. Means you want to find anything, just search it on Google and it is there. But what is the data? What is the relevant data that I look for, right? What do I infer from that data, right? And what is it, a business decision that I take from that data? I think that becomes extremely critical for me to understand that and think about a MarTech stack. It is like if I'm not doing, or if a team is not doing, or if a company is not doing this basic thing, however good the MarTech stack you might make, it will not make any difference. To give you an example, like let's say I will say, and a completely unrelated one, I'll say that I'll start running when I get a Nike Air Max for myself. But if I have not run at all, or if I'm not running even in ordinary shoes, I think it is going to be a novelty value. It'll come, I'll run for maybe 4-5 days, and then it'll be nicely packed and kept aside, right? So it is extremely important that that data culture is there in the organization. Another important thing before setting this up is, I would say that what kind of a problem are you trying to solve? Today, the options or the kind of plugins, or if I call it softwares, for setting up a MarTech stack are humongous. I was reading somewhere they could be in excess of 5,000, right? And most of these, a combination of these could do various things. Now, what is the problem that you are trying to solve? Is it a small problem? Is it a very big problem? The problem that you are trying to solve, if it is too narrow, then I don't think you are going to use that MarTech stack. It is at some point of time, people are going to say that, why did you buy this if you are not going to use it, right? Again, and maybe to put things in perspective, it is like saying that I just want a tablet kind of a device to read, let's say, books when I'm traveling, right? Now, I could do it with an e-reader, and I'll say that, okay, this is what I wanted to do, and this has solved my purpose, that's it. Or I could go and buy, let's say, an iPad, like the costliest one, but I'm using it only for ebooks. Both of them are serving my purpose, but at some time, if I had to rationally put an ROI to that entire exercise of reading on an e-reader, I think the first one becomes more relevant. The second one might not stack up on the ROI basis. So I think it is extremely important to answer these two questions, right? What am I getting this? What is my objective? What am I getting this MarTech stack to do? Is my team or the company geared up to do that? Because without this, however good I put it, it might not work. And the third important is, of course, I would say that the team that is going to use and the team that is going to be seeing it from the sidelines, both need to be trained on that. Otherwise, somebody in some department is going to come and say that you guys are spending X lakhs per month on this entire stack. What is happening?
What's the point of it? Right? That is very important. Organizational communication is also very important.
I think these are some of the challenges which come to my mind.
Let's get a few responses. Smitha, what keeps marketers up at night? Or some of these MarTech processes, they sound great, they sound new, but again, as we come to the ROI question, as Sushant mentioned, the organization also needs to understand its value. But you, who is evangelizing or leading that, you need to be sure of its value first. Some of the roadblocks that you faced and how you've addressed those roadblocks when it comes to MarTech or new MarTech processes.
Firstly, a category plugin. We don't stay up at night. We sleep. So yeah, I don't think anybody should stay up at night. But see, honestly, our jobs as marketers today, right, it is about alignment every day. So whether it's a MarTech stack or whether it's a simple campaign, like we have a national ambassador, Alia Bhatt. Even that campaign has to get everybody's alignment because you don't want postmortem, right? So for us, our job is alignment. And for years, it's not only today, we've been evaluating new ways of doing things, and MarTech is the new way of doing certain things today. So I definitely believe that alignment at early stages is great, and we should invest enough time in that. Postmortem internally really derails a marketing objective. So I try really hard to avoid that as much. The second thing is a little different from what he said. So when I joined Euroflex, there was not even a digital ecosystem. We were a completely trade-driven offline brand. Today, we are the only omni D2C digital-first brand. So the whole ecosystem has completely transformed. So if you're joining brands like that, to expect that there's going to be an existing ecosystem, an existing culture of tech, it's not possible, right? So I think, again, goes back to what you're taking up, what is the kind of environment that existing, and what's the challenge you've accepted for yourself as a marketer. So for me, it was very clear that there's nothing, right, from day one, and that's what we've operated on, and we've changed a lot of thinking internally, and that's been our win. Even with MarTech, we had to go through a couple of rounds internally to really convince different stakeholders and get the tech partners internally to really buy into it, right? So while we came from a marketing background, they needed to understand what's so great about a CDP platform too. So for us, we invested time in evaluating partners multiple times, evaluating the need. And again, our objective was so different as a category. So then even the partners are kind of re-evaluating, what to do. So I think that's exciting. It's not really a challenge. It's exciting for a marketer to learn to do this. And the team that's working on the account, internally and on both sides, needs to be really excited about the category. Like for us, if you don't love sleep and if you don't love the idea of educating the next person about sleep, it doesn't work because you're not really, while I say that, of course, there are so many metrics, but you're not really adding up onto how many people are just buying on your website. It is about how many people are finally buying your brand because we are an omni brand across so many channels. So So it has to be an obsession for that platform, for the team that gets excited on working on it. So get all that right before you actually execute. But at the same time, we don't have all the time in the world. So I think balancing the timing also, not too fast, not too slow. Just it sounds easy to say, but it's not.
But you
I
have
think
your
that's
priorities, right? And
yeah.
the fact that you mentioned that sleep is a priority, it just simplifies the idea, right? And then you gear the entire organization and all its initiatives around it. That central idea plays a key
Yeah,
role.
just one more thing. We also try and take up 2-3 key objectives, new objectives every year. So it's not like year one, we are doing everything. We have a MarTech stack, we have this, we have that. We're just taking up 2-3 new things so we can really live with it, learn it, and then win with it before we go in the next year and use something else. So that's probably something different too.
All right, all right. Ankur, your thoughts on this, because as I mentioned, the central idea was key, and we spoke earlier about being your own boss. In that context still, what were some of the roadblocks which come up, even if you have a strong central idea, in terms of setting up new MarTech processes?
I think this point of ROI was raised, and like, you know, how, like, should we even do certain campaign or certain exercise? That has always been a challenge, not in just in terms of the cost going to be spent, but is it really helping? And that's always been the question. And while in certain scenarios it is really, really tough to do that, like if you run a TV ad, it's really, really tough to objectify like how would it help. But at InstaMojo, because we are more an organically growing, hyper-targeting kind of a organization, we've tried to solve it by doing A/B testing, going back to the basics, and sort of whenever we do any campaign, we would always run a test, especially when the campaigns is more expensive, because now you are really taking a big bet, and if it is successful, you want to scale it up. You want to go deeper into it, improve it, but you need to first ensure, is it successful? Is it really causing a lift in my key metrics? And first challenge is to educate the marketers about it. Marketers typically have hated me a lot when they hear that we will do a test on the email campaign they're going to do, or a push notification campaign they're going to do, because it's not very common in organizations to do experimental testing, especially on even tiny marketing campaigns. But typically having something called a control group helps tremendously, where you just keep aside a sample of your customers and do not send them, or do not do the communication to them. Don't try to send an email to them, don't try to call them, don't do anything with them. And rest of them, you do your campaign, whatever it is. It could be multiple campaigns, it could be a series of campaigns. And then observe over time the lift or the difference in these two groups. And if you really will see a lift, that could potentially prove that your campaign was actually successful in sort of beating the status quo. But if you realize that, you know, even the control group and the group that you send your communication are roughly behaving similarly, that is an indicator that whatever you're doing is not really adding any value. And that sort of helps us to really figure out ROI in
so
some way.
you quickly move on. You experiment, you see, and you know, your experiments with the truth, you stick to it with the results and what they say, rather than trying to convince yourself that that's what the results
That's also the easiest way to convince organizations to take the leap of faith and invest in the kind of campaigns, invest in MarTech, because if there is real proof, even to some extent, right? Maybe it will not be 100% accurate, not even close, but even if there is some iota of success in objective metrics, then it's much easier to convince an organization as a whole to invest more in that exercise and sort of like continue to iterate to make it better. It becomes much easier.
All right, Charandeep, from your experience, your extensive experience, what would you say are the roadblocks? How have your experiences been different? Whether it's organizational alignment or ROI or all these experiments which we are talking about, how have things been different for you, especially when you try to set up new MarTech processes?
See, of course, ROI challenge is always there that any new investment you have to make, given the fact that there are so many choices in terms of, ad tech, lead generation, SEO platforms. So there are so many choices that, you often need to first fight or resist the, attractive distraction syndrome, right? That you should not get attracted to everything that's available in the market. So that's often which happens. Teams will come up to you and tell you, this is the new thing, So ROI is a challenge. I don't want to harp further on it. Also, some of the things in terms of, people often tend to forget the power of the storytelling, which a marketeer's core job is. Right? So that's a challenge you have to fight out, that while technology is there, data is there, if you do not have a good storytelling, right? So ours is not a very glamorous category or something, right? We are also in a business of fulfilling or catalyzing his aspirations, right? But we are not the real product, we are the enabler. So he's buying something with my money. So money it's just an enabler. So how do you build a storytelling around that is a very key to any market.
But data could help you evolve your storytelling.
So, but the
right?
major challenge, you started this round of questioning with what keeps you awake at the night is that as a marketer, most of the marketeers on this panel, they will evaluate their funnel analysis and funnel, and they will see where the leakages are. But none of that leakage is where your own company is saying, I'll not sell to this guy, right? So that's very typical to a finance company, that a huge part of your leakage could be that I don't want to give loan to this customer, right? So that's a very interesting challenge, that you might have a lot of discovery processes in terms of, this customer is interested in my product, but you really don't know without knowing his risk, right? Without knowing whether it is credit worthy. And that part of the journey does not lie with the marketeer, right? In the funnel, right? So how do you optimize for that? How do you really understand from the behavior or the buying patterns of the products he's buying that he may or may not? So I have a certain amount of leakage which is happening to this particular part, and how do you improve the lead? So while the quality of leads is generally measured in terms of how many customers end up at least taking one action after the lead is submitted, or they take one step further in the digital journeys. But this is one thing which, how do you improve the quality from the risk point of view, is an interesting challenge. And NBFC industry or BFSI industry actually has is actually at the very ahead of the curve in terms of, credit assessment and risk assessments and all that, right? So even if you have a very good model today to determine the propensity of buying or risk of buying through your data, it is very easily replicable, because RBI won't allow you to use any model which is you are not able to explain to the customer. So you can't just tell the customer in our industry that I am not giving you loan because my model says so. Right? You have to explain to him why. So at certain point of time, all these models also become commoditized. So right, so the experience, as Abhishek mentioned, you might try to find differentiation in the customer experience itself. And therefore, one of the areas where you can build your strength as financer, and all the new age financiers are actually using that, is how can you embed yourself into the journeys of the main products, rather than you trying yourself. That somebody comes to my platform, can you embed yourself into others' platforms, right? So that is where new age fintechs or NBFCs, or when we are looking at pivoting our business, can you create those kind of embedded journeys, is the challenge we'll have to work on.
It's an interesting thread that you have raised. What if you don't want to sell it to that customer? What do you do? It's a good thought process which we can explore as we go along, if we have time permitting. Let me just quickly check. All right, we have some time, so let me quickly go through the questions here and expand this conversation on ROI. Because I wonder, because setting up a functional, customer data platform, that's going to take 3 to 5 year capital expenditure investment for many players, right? So I wonder, do bigger players have the advantage here? Sangeet, your thoughts on this? When we expand that ROI question to ask this aspect of whether you're doing a lot of experiments. If you're a bigger player, you have the ability, you have the customers, you have the ability to have more granular experiments. So when we combine all of the points that we have discussed, do bigger players actually have the advantage here?
In my head, the bigger players would definitely have an advantage, but there are also challenges that come along with that. If you just think about Flipkart, for example, you got to sell mobiles, you got to train the same customer to buy large devices, fashion, grocery. How do you build an expectation from the customer to make them see you as a preferred platform to buy these different categories of products, right? That is not an easy challenge. And think about in a single category itself, how do you grow a customer? When do you treat him as still not at engaged? Each of the customer who is not at engaged with you, who is in the journey of being engaged to deeply entrenched, growing that customer needs significant personalization even within a single category. Now think about doing this across multiple categories, right? So there are significant challenges, and think about the attribution complexities of every decision, right? So there is a new category, new business that you're investing into. And how much should you actually try to, get a particular customer into that new category? The value of growing customer into a particular category, the lifetime value that you will get could significantly vary. For example, if you are able to introduce a high frequently purchased category like a BGM or a grocery, the value that you can get out of that customer could be significantly higher, right? So each of this decision at bigger scale, and when you deal with the different kinds of customer, right? India, as you know, is not a single India, right? A metro premium customer versus tier 2 customer, affluence levels varies, the taste of the customer varies, and being a national player serving those customers' needs, there is significant complexities and challenges that come along with it. Having said that, I see there are benefits that come with it, right? The kind of data exposure that you actually get, the kind of the talent and the technology that you can actually bring to the table. In my head, to get this right, you need to have a good combination of marketing, tech, and basically consumer insight and deep data need to come together, right? Your ability, and that is actually something that will take years of investment to get right. As a bigger player, you will have significant advantage of investing into it, experimenting and iterating it over it and getting it right. So it's a mix of both advantages and challenges.
Kirti, let me get your response to this. Sangeet's presented his case. From your perspective, bringing all things together, do bigger players have the advantage?
Yeah, if you look at CDP and its relevance and when does it even become very important, right? It starts to become very important when you get scale, right? Because when you don't have very large scale, there anyway tend to be other problems to solve, where even if you don't have the most sophisticated CDP, I think it's still fine, right? So typically it's a scaling problem, which means automatically companies as they get bigger face the problem, and also once they get bigger, they have the appetite to invest as well, like I think you mentioned. So to that extent, yes, bigger players have an advantage, but it's also more relevant for them as well compared to much smaller players. The other angle also is there is a build versus buy decision to be made as well. Not everything needs to be built in-house at every given point in time. I think once companies become very, very large, then obviously they tend to build everything in-house because it's become so critical. But along the journey, you have some of these build versus buy decisions. You sort of figure out some parts of that entire platform which you can sort of use something available in the market, and then you replicate it in-house once you get to a larger scale. So I think there are all of those angles involved, because ultimately that ROI question comes here as well, right? If you're going to keep investing, then how do you show the return on this one, right? And unfortunately for things like this, you can't rely on any short-term experiments, right? So here you have to take a long-term view, right? Saying, okay, I'm going to invest behind this, but with the hope that it's going to give me some return. And that's why you also stage your investments. You won't like put in all of the money upfront, and that's why you think about build versus buy and so on. So net, I think I do agree bigger companies have the advantage, but there are also all of these considerations that they need to think about. And it's anyway a scaling problem versus a problem for a company which hasn't gotten to some reasonable scale.
All right. Sudeep, you have a different opinion on this? What do you think? Because we are in a we're into a first-party data world, right? So from that perspective.
Yeah, actually, like no right answer, honestly. So yeah, like bigger companies, while they have an advantage, I think where smaller companies excel is speed, right? Internal silos are not there. It's easy to push things around. In a bigger company to onboard a tool, it'll take months of planning, really, right? Because you have to prioritize across hundreds of things that where does it really come, right? Like it was a very common challenge at Swiggy. I'm sure at Flipkart, at Meesho, it's an ongoing day-to-day challenge, right? The hundreds of things to do. How do you justify? How do you choose? And how do you prioritize a thing that you do not know what will surely deliver? It's a guesstimate that you're making, right? A stark contrast which I'm seeing at WOW, it's really fast to run very quick experiments, right? So while the data is thin, but whatever data is available, you can really use it to try out things very, very fast. It's much more agile. So the things that work for smaller companies are agility for sure. Ability to try and like Kirti was pointing out, right? Because it's not very big, right? You also can fail a lot easier. Right? With bigger companies, like the risk is much higher, right? I'm a Flipkart, I send a wrong notification to say 100 million users. I'm sure it's gonna bring the brand reputation down, right? While I'm not saying it's a good thing to do that, but for a smaller companies, you have a little more leeway, like if you do a little bit of a mistake, people are forgiving, so to speak, right? So that's another angle.
That's a valid point. Abhishek, let me bring you in to comment on how you kind of equalize the game, whether it's for bigger or smaller players. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that MarTech in general has been pretty generic, multi-purpose technologies for data layer. It's been using generic multi-purpose technology. So from that perspective, I want to talk more about Tesseract DB and how it kind of resolves the issue when we look at look-back period and data granularity. Two aspects to the question, the equalizing of the market through using Clevertap and talking more about Tesseract DB.
Let me answer one of those questions first, which is, we have seen in our own experience the advantage that some of the large companies have, right? The big tech companies that we all know, right? FANG and whatnot, right? These companies have a huge advantage. And our endeavor has always been to level the playing field so that even the smaller companies have the same tools, technologies available for them so that they can also achieve the same outcome. If a large company is able to achieve, let's say, CTR of 5%, 10%, right? Why can't a smaller player achieve 5, 10, or even more? So that has been one endeavor from our side, and we have been extremely successful in terms of doing that because though we work with some of the largest companies, we also work with a number of startups across the globe. Like today we work with more than 1,300 companies across the globe and integrate with more than 10,000 apps. So we see situations which are of varied nature. Now coming to the Tesseract DB part, now this is interesting because when we think about SaaS, software as a service, a category that we belong to, or even MarTech, when we started our journey, most of the companies were originating from the West, and they were selling in the East. Even today, that is largely the case, which is companies will create a product. At least they're still thinking from that standpoint. Now, when we started thinking about this, interestingly for us, we had our roots in the East. Not just in terms of development, but also selling. Because even the companies that are in the East, a lot of companies build here, sell to the West. So they're still trying to solve the problems of the West. We thought differently. We build in the East, sell in the East. And the interesting thing was, the first problem that we encountered was scale, which is, if we look at scale in the Western markets, if an app has 1 million or 2 million users, that's a significant scale. In here, we are dealing with scale where some of our customers have 300 million, 400 million, 450 million monthly active users. Now that is a scale which is just not possible in the West, right? Because the population doesn't exist. So scale is the first thing that we encountered as a situation that we had to solve for, because if we are going to operate in the markets of India, Indonesia, and some of the other Asian countries, then we needed to build for scale. The second thing that came along with that was speed and performance. Kirti gave the example in terms of engaging with consumers in a hyper-personalized manner, literally with a segment of one, multiple times a day, 5 times, 20 times in a day, which means you're trying to utilize the data that you have, like collecting the data and using the data in real time to do these millions of engagements in a given day. That's just not possible if you utilize any off-the-shelf database, whether it be a SQL database or an object-oriented database or a document database, no matter what. We have looked at all tech, by the way, as we explored this. So scale is one thing. You want to store like petabytes of data. Second, you want to have speed and performance to be able to engage with users multiple times a day in a real-time manner. And the third is, do so in an economical manner, which is again is a problem in the East, right? Sure, you can store a lot of data, you can apply a lot of cloud computing, and you can, but you have to do it in a cost-effective manner. And you spoke about the look-back period also. Do so that you have the data for prior periods. So when we looked at the business problem that we are trying to solve for our customers, it became apparent to us that we will have to find our own solution. So we went on a path to build our own database, which we call as TesseractDB. It's a database that allows us to store vast amounts of data in an efficient manner. It allows us to provide our customers look-back periods of up to 3 years. Our customers are able to run real-time campaigns multiple times a day, in a number of cases in an automated manner without actually touching the system at all, and do so in a cost-efficient manner. So we use the first principle approach to go ahead and build something out that would be relevant for our customers. And the benefit of TesseractDB today that we have is our customers are getting a huge amount of value from it, because we spoke about the quantity of data and the quality of data. It has a huge value in terms of the insights that we get. If we have more data, we are able to generate some more insights. Some more data with respect to a particular user allows us to serve them much better in real time. If I know last year what someone ordered, and if I know what someone ordered this time, and if I know the seasonality of the orders, maybe I know that maybe they have some unique events in the family at which point they order certain things differently. So all of those insights become possible because of TesseractDB. And for us now, one more advantage that we have is building feature capabilities on the top of it has become very easy. So when a new channel comes along, let's say we have to think about WhatsApp, it's merely just adding one more channel to the overall platform that we have. So TesseractDB, for us, it was a very different experience because most of the SaaS companies, MarTech companies, they're all about, let's build feature functionality. And while the race was going on in terms of feature functionality, we were just sitting in our offices, building a database, which was contrary to the popular thing. But we realized the benefit of it. Our customers have realized the benefit of it. And I think this sets us up in a really good manner on a move-forward basis.
All right, and if you want to know more, of course, you can speak with Abhishek and all right, and of course, we can continue these conversations as we go along. But for now, it's a wrap for our conversation on the future of MarTech, bringing the tech back to market. I'd like to thank all of the panelists, and what a galaxy of speakers that we have. Let's give them a loud round of applause. Thank you so much for your insights and experiences and lessons in excellence. And with that, I hand it back to our host.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Have a fantastic evening. Thank you.